changes, we have increase in hospitality funds. We also have increase in grants, and then we all have increase in expenditures.
There's the building maintenance and the stormwater master plan, the gateway sign in the Packlet Station Park.
Any questions, any comments? Okay, moving on. Going the second portion is amendment to the zoning ordinance, chapter 3, section 4, permitted use table of retail and restaurants. You see on the screen. Everybody understand that? Down here. What we discussed last meeting. I'm sorry. We good? Okay. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. In compliance with the Federal Information Act, notice of this meeting was submitted by fax and to the Spartanburg Herald Journal, posted on the bulletin board, will lobby at Town Hall and on the town's website. Now the invocation.
Let us pray. Father God, Lord, we do indeed, Lord God, come to you again tonight, Father, and we're asking for you to grant wisdom and knowledge tonight, Father, for our council and administrator, Father. Indeed, Lord God, that you would touch them and move on them, Father, to help them to lead the town the way that you'd have it to be led, Father. And Lord God, we come to you tonight, Father, with the needs, requests of our town, Father. In the surrounding areas, they are great. There are many. They're both spoken and unspoken throughout our community and our town tonight, Father. But Lord God, indeed, you are Jehovah Jireh, the God of provision. So we're asking, we're seeking, Father, for the very storehouse of heaven, for the very doors and windows of heaven, Father, to open up and shower down blessings upon our town and upon our council, Father. Move on us tonight, Father. Help us tonight, Father, and we ask it all in Jesus' name, and amen.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
enjoyed working with you. Concurrently, as the comprehensive plan was being developed, we were also developing the master plan, which is in the comprehensive plan. But now we've put together the draft document of just the master plan to share with you tonight, get some input. Certainly look forward to the weeks ahead of additional input that you may have. Next slide. And just to remind you, these are the areas that we've looked at. You can do the full screen if you want. Certainly we looked at all the riverfront focus areas there that included the really large, formerly occupied Packlet Milliken properties. In red, those are some of the forest wooded areas, the amphitheater area, the flat, and then also the old mill site, and then the downtown area. Next slide. What was driving the master plan and the development of that? We had the survey that was completed as part of the comprehensive plan, so a lot of that input also went into this document. The steering committee, it was the same for the comprehensive plan as it was for the master plan. And what we took from that was a lot of the ideas from the community to have an active riverfront or vitalized downtown, restaurants, small businesses, more outdoor recreation, events, and entertainment opportunities. We also saw the opportunity to capitalize on existing local and regional assets, and particularly the river. Regional tourism is continuing to grow in the county, and also here in Packlet, in the history and the destinations that you have here. But also market reality. There are limitations in the current market today in Packlet. But once again, we see a stronger regional market in the county that can help growth and development here in these areas. So the guiding principles, which is the next slide, that kind of underpin the foundation of the plan and the vision, included activating the river, promoting your historic and cultural resources, facilitating downtown development, improving community appearance, and connecting people and places, and that's in town and also from the region into town. Next slide. And so the vision that was developed as part of working with the committee from the community input was to establish the town of Packlet as a vibrant cultural and outdoor recreation destination. So as you're going to see on the next slides and coming up, the riverfront focus areas, we'll start there. Once again, that included the properties identified with the flat and the amphitheater and the old mill site number 3. Next slide. We looked at development constraints, and there are quite a few. If you see on that map, the dark red are those really steep slopes, which really hinders development, which is why those areas aren't developed today. Floodplain occupies a lot of the area along the river, and we believe that when the floodplain is reevaluated, it's probably going to shrink a little bit, especially in the areas on the flat. There's access challenges to some of those areas that we looked at, and also lack of utilities in some of those areas. Next slide. Once again, thinking regionally, how do you connect to this growing tourism economy that's happening in the county as a whole? You've got the Packlet River opportunities, the Dam Trail, Cross State Park, Packlet River Heritage Preserve, the Carolina Thread Trail, and you have major roads that come through Packlet as well. Next slide. So some of the business opportunities that we identified early on were opportunities to improve canoe, kayak livery services, hiking, biking, and outdoor recreation services and rentals, camping, and we'll go through all these in a little bit more detail, and zip lining. Next slide. You're very familiar with your river and the opportunities of how to connect with that. Next slide. And here's just a nice picture showing the river during one of the festivals. Next slide. But there are a lot of challenges. You do have to portage, so you have to take out on the western side, and you have to portage quite a distance to be able to put back in and complete your trip. Next slide. And there are some challenges. It's kind of a primitive takeout spot, which is great for an outdoor enthusiast, but for somebody who's not, it's kind of challenging. So next slide. So one of the solutions for that is an accessible canoe and kayak launch, which frankly I would prefer. It makes it much easier to get in and out, not just for someone like me, but anybody. So it's built to really facilitate all sorts of people and their abilities to be able to come in and out of the river. Next slide. So looking at some of those big properties, you see they're circled in kind of that yellow opportunity to have even more challenging and interesting mountain biking on some of those properties that could complement the State Park and draw some mountain bike interest to this area. Next slide. Obviously, I mentioned the Dan Trail. You're very aware there's been efforts underway to connect the Dan Trail to Packlet, and it's hopefully coming soon. Obviously, it's going to still take a lot of money and effort, but putting the land together is a big piece of that. And I think there's still just a couple of properties or still agreements are trying to be worked toward making that happen. Next slide. The rustic lodging, this is becoming very popular. You don't really have, you kind of face a challenge, chicken and the egg. How do you get people here to stay here, to do things here, to get on the river? Having some rustic lodging opportunities as temporary uses to activate some of those properties provides, not only a great, less expensive opportunity to get some lodging going overnight, but it's really interesting. A lot of families look for these kinds of things. There's one similar development near me that has they made one of these rustic lodgings into this Hobbit house. So it's got the circular door, if you've seen some of those movies, it's kind of embedded into the ground, just like a Hobbit house. So there's lots of fun things that can be done to make this temporary lodging, interesting and be a draw for people that want to stay here overnight. Next slide. And here are just some of those same areas where this rustic lodging, I mentioned access and steep slopes. That type of use is perfect, for these kind of areas. Next slide. Another thing that's great for terrain would be zip lining. Next slide. This is something that's popular. You may be familiar with the Chattahoochee down in Columbus, Georgia. I think that's the Chattahoochee. Next slide. Can you imagine zip lining across the Packlet? Wouldn't that be great to see that? You've got the views, you've got the terrain and the height to do it. The committee and we thought this would be a great, fun thing to do. Next slide. And it builds on that theme of the outdoor recreation, bringing people to Packlet, building on that tourism economy focused on outdoor recreation. So what you see here is a conceptual plan for the flat area, and I'm going to focus first kind of what I call the eastern side of it, basically from Lockhart Powers property, over toward Town Hall. Next slide. Just wanted to remind everybody what an asset that riverfront wall is. Today it's overgrown, but look at that photo of the historic picture of the wall. It's very urban looking, very clean. So there's a lot of opportunities to clear that vegetation, make that wall more prominent again, and make it a nice feature coming into town. Next slide. Obviously, if you haven't walked over there in a while, you've already got this nice wall that complements what we just showed on the previous slide that can be turned into a river walk. So we think there's a huge opportunity for that. Next slide. And I'm going through these quick because they got a big agenda. So I apologize. This is the existing conditions for some drone footage. And next slide. This shows how it could be activated. If all these things that we've documented, with the riverfront, the walk, having the space for an outdoor stage, restrooms, this nice big green Packlet lawn, Packlet green, and you see this kind of in the bottom right of the screen, this outline area. There was an idea that surfaced from the committee to outline some of the historic buildings. We can't reconstruct them, but at least putting the outlines in the ground could help one see where the buildings used to be. And there could be signage that showed what the buildings used to look like. So lots of opportunities for a children's play area, etc. And also one of the challenges is going to be crossing the bridge. So this is where the Dan Trail is expected to come into town. So next slide. This is what the bridge looks like today. And with some modifications and moving the sidewalk. Next slide. This is how it could appear in the future. Now we think this would be very tight, and you'd have to work very closely with DOT to make this happen. And certainly, there's room to do this, but it would be very tricky to do and make sure you got approvals. Another alternative would be taking the old bridge route, which would use the existing piers that are in the column near your horse sculpture. That could potentially be a separate, dedicated pedestrian and bike bridge. Basically terminate right into the site. So that's another alternative provide a more prominent location for the sculpture. Next slide. So moving to the western side, which is down where the fishing piers are now, and the primitive canoe kayak takeout, some of the things we looked at there, or how do you create a riverfront pavilion, how do you open up some of the views, how can you improve the accessibility of the canoe and kayak launch, which we showed a little bit and talked about earlier. Next slide. And this is such a great resource. I can't think of too many other places that have something so unique. I mean, it's just one of the most unique things. You look at it and it's like, where is that? What country is that? You don't realize that, man, that's right here. Next slide. This is what it looks like today. And some of those trees, a lot of them have become diseased, block some of the views. And next slide. This shows you how it could be opened up by clearing some of the trees that are dead and diseased, and opens up some views of the riverfront. Next slide. And this is what it looks like today. This is that parking area. It used to be for the mill. Just to the right is where the fishing areas are. And next slide shows you how it could be transformed into a riverfront pavilion. That parking lot sets up high, so it would give you some nice elevated views of the river. Looking upstream, you can see how the river can be activated and have a greater, even larger canoe, kayak takeout point, and how you can connect better over to the amphitheater and then down to the existing fishing areas. Next slide. So shifting over to this side, looking at the old mill area down here around where number 3 used to be. It's a pretty large area. Next slide. There's a lot of interesting things along this trail. It's an old rail bed. I don't know if you've walked back there in a long time or not, but it's still there. I'm not sure who maintains it. Somebody goes through every now and then and clears it so you can walk it. But there are some really nice features left over there with this rock wall that you can see in one of the photos, and you can see the lower Packlet Shoals Dam. There's just a lot of great things that could be pointed out along this trail. So next slide. This is what it looks like today. You see some old remnants of the mill. Or I'm sure it wasn't the mill, but it's probably some building related to it. Next picture. And this shows you how that could be improved with some signage to tell you what it was and improve the trail so that you can more actively use it. Right now, I would say that your normal everyday person is probably not going to go walking back there. I enjoyed it, but it would need to be cleared out to make it available for a broader audience within the community and potential tourists. Next slide. So looking at the Victor Park, this is pretty self-explanatory recommendation. Bring back that neighborhood. How can we revitalize that, build some new homes that are similar in architecture to what used to be there. Next slide. So now shifting focus, we talked a lot about the riverfront. Everybody gets excited about the riverfront, but the downtown also presents opportunity as well. We looked at a couple of different sites at West Main and out on 9. Next slide. This is an old convenience gas station, and this is how we envisioned what it could be turned into. Next slide. It could be activated with the restaurants and outdoor seating, improved sidewalks, bicycle facilities, and signals, landscaping, etc. So it's a great opportunity to reuse a former building here in town. Next slide. This next image is taken from the West Main 150 intersection, and so if you click the next slide, you can see how pedestrian crosswalks are added, wider sidewalks on one side next to the buildings to help activate and liven up Main Street. Next slide. We also took a look at what if you expanded development along West Main Street. There are some lands going down toward the post office. Yeah. And there's ample room in the back to create some new parking areas to support whatever kind of businesses would be developed along that stretch. There's also, I think you have on your agenda tonight to talk about the park, the large area there, on the bottom end of the slide there. So there's lots of opportunities to improve and revitalize the downtown area of Packlet as well. I can't believe I got through this that quick. Next slide. So, year 1 implementation. I'll start out by saying I did assign some years to the implementation. It's a little bit ambitious. You may want to think about it some more. I think it provides a guide, but in the very first year, in relationship to the riverfront, one of the most important things is to develop a memorandum of understanding and use agreements with Packlet Milliken, who is the property owner and intends to be the property owner for many years. They were part of the process, and although they were part of this, you will still need formal written agreements that will allow you to do many of the things that are outlined in the plan. And certainly some of the vegetative clearing, and maybe some of those things can be done, before all that gets worked out. But that's one of the most important things you'll need to do, is to get that written agreement to be able to move forward with a lot of these projects. The second step is there has not been a detailed environmental evaluation of the flat area. We don't have any reason to believe there's anything that significant there, but you just don't ever know. So it is related to that. I mentioned removing the overgrown vegetation and debris that can be ongoing as part of the site evaluation, but you really need to have a good handle on what's there, what's underground, where's it at. All those things need to be figured out before you launch too much further. So getting that memorandum of understanding with the property owner, but then also doing some additional investigations of the site, especially what's underground. And then, once you have a good feel for that, then earnestly going forward with developing plans to develop the flat and the concept plans. Now, does that mean you do it all at one time? Do you do it in pieces? A lot of that's going to depend on your resources and available budget. If you're able to do engineering detailed plans for portions of it, maybe you can get enough funds to do the whole site at one time. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, with your budgeting process and funding. But certainly, so the cost estimates there, those are based not by an engineer. That was done by myself and staff that looked at other projects completed in other communities that were comparable. So, to say again, that those costs would need to be looked at by an engineer, developed by an engineer, based on site evaluation. Because we did put some pretty heavy contingency in there because there is so much that we don't know. So are these decent estimates compared to other projects as far as building things like this? Yes. Does it include what might be on the site that needs to be removed? No, because we don't know what might be there. Back up just a little bit, Patrick, sorry about that. But once you do know that, once you do know what the cost is and you feel comfortable about it, developing a capital improvement plan specifically for that area and that project, so that you can have targets to move forward for budgeting, raising funds, etc. Adopting zoning ordinance amendments. So a lot of the things, like I said, we developed this with the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan includes things like looking at the zoning of the riverfront areas, because some of the uses we've looked at probably aren't allowed in your ordinance today. So that will need to be looked at as you revise your ordinance. Also with the downtown, so that you ensure you get the kind of redevelopment you want downtown. So those things need to be done as part of your ordinance updating over the next year. And then obviously you're working on the downtown park plan now. Next slide. Looking at years 2 to 4, obviously, hopefully, you'll be into some construction of some of the projects. A lot of that's going to depend on your funding. You may be developing additional site plans during year 2 and 4 for parts of the site you weren't able to budget for previously. Continue to coordinate with partners, the Dan Trail connection, SCDOT on any potential bridge improvements. The amphitheater, I just kind of touched on that briefly. There are several people that are looking at developing costs. What's it going to take to actually revitalize that concrete? And it's not going to be easy. There's a lot of steps involved with that. Develop the Old Mill Trail improvements. Once again, just looking at similar kind of projects, we think that there's a cost estimate for that. Working on the downtown roads and sidewalks, that's something that's going to take a lot of planning with DOT and also ensuring that gets into their plans, but also into your plans. DOT will fund some of those improvements, but anything that's above and beyond, like a standard sidewalk, they're going to look to the town and say, okay, if you want that, you're going to have to pay for that piece of it. So those types of conversations will have to be had with DOT to make sure you get what you want out of those improvements. And related related to that would be, encouraging property owners to improve the appearance of their buildings. This can be done through facade grants. Many of you may have seen these in different places across the state, very effective to help encourage at least improving the appearance. Next slide. And then finally, year 5 and forward, certainly you'll continue to look at projects. We think that's probably a good time frame to begin the process of redeveloping Victor Park neighborhood to bring that back to life. The coordinating the zip line development across the river, going back to that MOU and that use agreement, that's something that will have to be worked out with the property owner so that you can actually go out and recruit somebody, because you don't want to run it, I don't think. You would want to recruit a private entity to come in and develop that and run it. I don't think that's something you want to do as a town. Improve the parking area. So there are some parking improvements that were noted in the master plan that I just didn't really dive into. This would also be a time as you're starting to develop some of the activities along the riverfront to start to look at activating some of those larger properties with the temporary lodging. And some of the orders, and you'll need to think through these as far as a priority each year to year, because things are going to change as your resources change, as you find funding that you didn't know was there. So some of these years and timelines will shift based on that. And then finally, you're going to want to update this regularly, look at it regularly, and as I said, reevaluate your priorities, because you don't know what resource is going to show up as you start to move forward with implementing the plan. That's all I have for you tonight. Unless you have any questions. It's a lot.
Appreciate your hard work. Long route, but I'm glad y'all did a good job.
I appreciate that. Well, we have some more work to do, a few little things to tighten up in here, and I'm sure you may have some comments, and so we'll look forward to hearing from Patrick from you all about any additional comments before we wrap up the draft. But thank you very much.
Question? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, I think you have a presentation.
Hello, Mayor.
Hey, how are you?
Nice to see you. I know I'm not as excited as seeing all the new plans for a park. I'm the auditor. So I'm here to present the 6/30/23 audit that we wrapped up in July. And what I gave you, I find it a lot better to give a comparative summary versus going through the 60 pages of the report. It seems to come across better. As you know, our firm's Lowe Bailey. I'm Gary Bailey. This is our first year working with the town on your audit. And as you're aware, we come in, you're required to have this audit by the state every year, return to the state. And as an auditor, we're coming in and we're going to audit your trial balance, your financial statements. We're going to do that and issue an opinion on that, which we did. We issued an unmodified opinion, which a lot of people refer to as a clean opinion. That's the opinion that the town wants to receive as council. And then the second thing we do is we evaluate all your financial process, your internal controls. And Pacolet's like a lot of smaller municipalities where you just have limited staff, so segregation of duties sometimes can play a part, but unfortunately, you don't staff additional employees just for segregation of duties. So that was one issue. Like I said, that is not uncommon of smaller towns. And then I would suggest in our review of the council minutes and just going through the internal control checklist, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would suggest that the council get at least on a quarterly basis budget actual report. If you're not doing that, it didn't seem like you were, but we're looking at 23 and now you've gone through 24, so you might be doing that now, but I would suggest that the council, because you approve that budget once a year, and I think a budget actual report, at least quarterly, keeps you on track of what you all approve once a year. So that would be my suggestion as far as your ton of time, but kind of go over year 23 versus 22. Again, we didn't audit 22, so it's not exactly apples to apples because some of the numbers on the 22 report kind of got lumped into larger pots of other, so we couldn't exactly see the breakdown. But as you can see, you ended up with a little over 1.4 million of revenue in 23. That was down a little bit from the previous year, but I think a couple things, the court fines and forfeitures was down, of course, and then there's a lot of COVID-related type grants that came through in 22 that you got some of that in 23 with ARPA, but it doesn't seem to be at the same level. So your revenue was down, but so was your expenses quite a bit. Your revenue was 1.4. I'll break this down into operating revenues and expenses. So I want you to see what your operating net income is because that's what allows you to have the resources to pay down debt service, put into capital outlay, or put into your reserve fund. So for 23, the town ended up just under $500,000 of operating income, which then you spent $325,000 on capital outlay. I think it was building improvements. So remember, this is a year removed. You have to remember some of the projects, vehicles and building improvements was what most of that was spent on. Also had $53,000 in debt service payments on the capital lease and the bond. And then you sold a few assets. So when it's all said and done, the town ended up with about $209,000 of a positive fund balance, change in fund balance, which a lot of times people just refer to as your net income. At the bottom there, I'm kind of breaking down, let you see where you're spending a portion of your money, operating expenditures. You can see payroll was about 51, which is by far your largest, which is very similar to other towns. You're actually a little bit lower. Most municipalities this size is more around 60-65% of each dollar spent on payroll, which 24 may have come back up there. But those four areas, which is just operations, payroll, utilities, insurance, repairs and maintenance, fuel, supplies, that's 80 cents on every dollar you spend. So that's just your normal cost of operating the town. Nothing there looked unusual compared to other municipalities that we audit. So your finances actually look really well. You produced positive cash flow from operations, which then generated additional cash in the bank account. The next page is your balance sheet. You have a really good balance sheet in the sense that you have very, very little debt overall. You can see you have cash. Of course, you moved a lot of your cash into investment accounts, which, by the way, generated about $41,000 in interest in 23. So generated a lot of interest by moving that over to the state investment account. So you ended up, in total, you had about $1.8 million in cash and investments at the end of 23, which was up from about $1.35 million the previous year. That actually, based on your 23 operating expenditures, it's about 22 months of cash on hand, which is very strong financial strength. I'm sure 24 getting payroll back to full strength bump your operating expenses up. But still, our recommendation typically to towns is you need 3 to 6 months of cash on hand because of the way you collect revenues, property taxes, business license, things like that. You have to use more cash at certain times than you bring in. So you have a strong 22 months. Of course, as you saw with the plan there that was just presented, you can use several $1 million pretty quickly nowadays. So while you're keeping your operations low and you have cash to support that, a couple of projects and that can be used up really fast. Other than that, most everything else is fairly similar. Your pension, as you know, I'm sure you've been told in the past, we've talked about this for years, the state pension is underfunded by about $28 billion, and every entity that's a part of that pension gets an amount allocated to them, and the town of Pack was the $664,000. Obviously you don't make payments on that, but you have to book it on your financials. The way you've paid for that is the percentage has been going up every year that you have to match. I think it's somewhere between 18 and 20% depending on what type of employee you have. But overall, you had a fund balance of just over $3 million, a strong fund balance, good cash flow. Your debt was $147,000. I think it'll be as of 23, that would have been paid off around early 28, and you wouldn't have any more debt. So you really have it right now. At the end of 23, you have a strong balance sheet with good cash reserves based on the operations. And like I said, we didn't in our audit, we didn't find anything that looked like fraud or any kind of wrongdoings or anything like that. So the town's in good shape financially. Yeah. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions, anyone? Anybody? Okay.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Right. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Do we have anybody? Moving on to 7, approve the minutes of August 1st, 2024.
Motion to approve the proposed first one.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of August 1st, 2024. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Department report. County Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll kind of hit some of the highlights from here. As mentioned before, the town of Packlet is gonna maintain the 84.2 mils or .0842 mils, unless council directs otherwise. This is something that Spartanburg County sends to us every year, and they let us know that we're eligible for. So every year the town has the possibility of increasing the millage rate. The town has not increased the millage rate. This is not something that is being asked for this evening. It's not on the agenda. It was just an FYI that we received this letter. We received this information from Spartanburg County that we were going to be maintaining it at .0842. The RFP for the gateway sign received only one quote from Blue Ridge Stone Products LLC. The total cost for land clearing, site preparation sign, and landscaping came in at approximately $52,000, which is much higher than what was estimated and budgeted. We budgeted $35,000. I've asked them what can be removed from the price to get it closer to what the town has budgeted. If they remove some of the larger trees and the landscaping in the town can clear the site, they can do it for $36,000. So the clearing will entail, this is the property at the corner of 176 and West Main Street, where the proposed location will be. I believe First Baptist has a sign that's right there that directs people to direct down West Main Street. It's right near that location. There's a lot of pine trees there. The pine trees will have to be removed, and then the root systems or the stumps will have to be removed. I don't know if our guys are capable of doing this, but this is an option that's on there to try to get the price down. I really wanted to get your feedback on this just because the price ended up being much higher. If you'd like, I can look at additional options with the contractor to see if we can just remove some of the larger trees that are in the project and have them continue to do the site work. And if you want, we can form a committee to kind of talk more about this at another located time.
How long is their quote good for?
They believe it was good for at least 30 days on there. I think we can work with them on that. You do have the total $52,000 out of your hospitality funds. If that's the direction that y'all wanna go, we could spend that and the project would move forward. I'm just trying to look at cost savings because I think $52,000 for that particular quarter is a lot. I believe at the last council meeting, Councilperson Sexton made a comment that wanted to not just improve this location, but to also improve the signage at the intersection of 176 and 9 and 176 and 150. So I would hate for the town to put all this money into one location. However, from Spartanburg, it's very visible. I mean, that's where most people end up turning coming in. The GPS takes a lot of people through that particular area. So I'm just trying to save you guys some money on this.
You don't think, you said you didn't think, our people?
I don't know. It's, as long as we can, when we're cutting down the trees, make sure that they're directed back and not forward, I think we'll be fine. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. What we may end up doing is working with PD and blocking off West Main Street, so just in case trees do go the other direction, that we would be, we're not going to put anybody else in danger.
How many trees are you talking about? Is it something that would be worth having a logger come in and check them out?
There's about, I believe there's about 10 or 15 trees that need to be coming out, and most of them are very small. But the concern I have is making sure that they aren't going to go out into the road.
Was the trees that have to be taken out based on their, I guess, landscape design or something you or someone else?
No, it was based on the landscape design that this company had put together and designed this for us. Based on the area that needs to be out there, they're going to have to cut down several of those trees. If you notice, those trees come all the way up to the edge of the cliff there before it drops down. So you'll have to remove some trees to get out.
How big is the area that they planned or landscaped out? How big is that? Is it bigger than what's already at the?
It is a little bit bigger than that. If you give me a second, I can pull it up and let you look at it.
Perhaps maybe if it could be scaled down, depending on how big it looks.
How many trees, how many do you think, they were talking about, did they say? I mean,
They didn't tell me how many trees it was going to be.
I'm just thinking, I mean, probably not, I mean, it's not that big of an area, but it still makes a little step that you see
I don't
this.
think it's much trouble removing these things. I mean, we can get somebody to do that.
Would you not be able to make all three entrances around the same size? Why would you want to put one big entrance sign opposed to the other two? I think they should all run along the same scale. Yeah, just the fact, yeah. Could,
Is that the same, is it the same size as the other ones?
The size of the sign is the same. Now, what they end up adding on there that is not at the other locations is there's three trees that are there, and there's also 3 trees behind it as well. And what we were looking at was cutting those trees behind the sign out and taking that out of the budget, because we don't have to have that, but it's going to look nice. One thing you'll see on there, it's proposed on here to have, so here's where the sign ends up being, and there's spotlights going here, and then they've also got these 3 large trees in the back, and they've got some uplighting that goes up onto the trees get lighted up a lot more.
would we not want to keep all 3 entrances into Packlet on the same scale?
Well, if we save money on this one, we could probably improve those other.
The other 2, yeah.
Other two, yeah.
So if you like, I can work with the size of the sign is gonna be the same that's on there. It's just, right now, it's the landscaping all around it. And so, we can cut back some of the stuff that's on there, but it's still going to, one of the biggest costs that I'm hearing from the project coordinator or the contractor on there is the site work that's gotta be done. If we're able to go through and cut the trees down ourselves, and able to get the roots systems up, we've got chainsaws, we've got the ability to do it, and we also have a winch on the front of the truck that can pull the stumps out. They've never done this kind of thing before.
You miss
You
the
know,
trees, you
yeah.
gotta have some experience on that.
I think we need to look into something, to get somebody to remove those forests and, see what we can get a price on that. These people, I don't know if they probably they probably got somebody to give them a price to do that. They're not doing it themselves. They're having somebody else, some subcontractor to do that. And I think we can find somebody locally probably to do it a lot cheaper than what they're probably quoted.
You said 27,000.
So, if we grab the side, and then do it, 36, so it's $16,000 difference.
So they're saying to remove the trees, it's gonna be what, 27? Yeah.
How much, Rick?
About $16,000 difference. They can grab the side, or we prepare it.
What are you looking at?
I was gonna show you the cost of the project. So the task one is the $25,000 that's on there, and that's the installation of erosion control, the removal of the trees, and regrading of the site that's out there.
How much did you bring it up? Did they break that down? The removal of the trees, other than the installation of the.
This is what I have in terms of the price that's on here.
I'm sorry.
This is all I've got.
Okay.
So the $16,000 difference is just task one?
So the $16,000 difference is if the town removes the trees and gets rid of the roots, they're still gonna have to grade the property, they're still gonna have to put in silt fencing, they're still gonna have to prepare it. But it cuts down a big chunk of that. The other part of it was taking out some of the larger trees. If you give me a second, I can show that I haven't put it into a different quote.
I'm pretty sure we could find local contractors that can remove 10 trees for less than 16,000.
just a, part of your report, we could probably come up with some separate ideas, have it on an agenda item or something of that sort.
That works.
Yeah.
Any volunteers can contact Pat at Town Hall.
Please do. If any council members would like to, use a chainsaw and cut down some trees with me, that would be wonderful. So we're at full staff with Public Works, currently working on the policies and procedures on there. The town purchased 18 picnic tables that will be currently down at the fishing piers and be used for our events, and will store them away in Public Works when not in use. At the last council meeting, council asked for an updated fee schedule for ordinance violations. I've asked other communities what they do in Woodruff. I'm just going to skip down through here. What I'm suggesting to y'all, because I think is I would recommend that if council wants something lower than the current $500 per offense plus court costs, that all ordinance violations are $250 for the first offense and then $500 for future offenses, or if the ordinance violation is not fixed after the court date. Having multiple fine amounts for different violations may get very complicated and hard to track for staff. I'd ask that keeping things simple will be better for tracking, especially with multiple violations. Keep in mind that we work with those in violation of ordinances, as paying a fine doesn't fix the problem. We would prefer to give those more time to fix the problem than to receive a fine payment. Very rarely does the town receive payment for a fine. If you can kind of give me a direction on this so that I can go ahead and, because this will have to be by ordinance that will go into your town ordinances. Because it currently sets up that unless it's stated somewhere in your town ordinances, all violations of your ordinance are set at the $500 plus court cost rate.
But you say typically the town don't collect any money from that because you give.
We do the best that we can to work with property owners. I can tell you of 3 properties where the town actually collected funds. One is which we worked with the property owner for about 6-8 months to try to get them to work on it, and they did not. There's another property owner who had the intention of doing a bunch of work and was going to send me a list of all the stuff they were going to be working on. This was after about 2 different court dates, and they did not.
So the amount would have increased anyway, because even if he got fined the first $250, he didn't do anything, he would have still got fined $500 after that.
Right.
Are you saying each time it's not completed, then it's another $250?
What if y'all would like to decrease them, I would suggest that you end up having all fines across the board for code violations as it's $250 for the first violation. And then it would be, if they don't fix it after court date, it would be added on, a $500 fee on top of that. But like I said, we try to work with every property owner for code violations to get them cleaned up, so that we're not collecting. Because at the end of the day, if we collect $500 or $1,000 for at a court date, the problem's not fixed. And so then we've got to go out there again and start over.
So how long do we wait until, what is the time from the first fine? What's the, okay, we give you X amount of days, and if you don't get it done within X amount of days, it goes to the $500. Is there what's the time limit?
So as of right now, if there's a code violation, we send them a letter. They've got 15 days to comply. In 15 days, we go out and inspect. If they haven't done anything, then it goes to court. It's typically around 30 to 60 days for court. Not always, but by law, it has to be no less than 10 days. But we typically give code violations about 30 what she does, I'd encourage if you can, come to the court. She tries to work with these people. I mean, at the end of the day, it's her decision, it's not mine, what ends up happening. And she tries to give them the opportunity. There's been several times where she said, can you get it fixed by Monday? We're on a Thursday, can you get it fixed by Monday? We'll send code enforcement out there. If you've got it fixed by Monday, we'll wipe the whole thing clean.
Cause it sounds like from the time they get the ticket in the 15 days and then the time the court date is, they pretty much already have had like at least 2 months
Yes,
to take care of it.
yes. And the judge typically, not always, she typically does not give someone a fine on their first court date. She tries to give them some time. And if people are willing to, put together a plan, how we're going to address this. The comment that I always get is, I had somebody in Harveytown, who said, I live out of town, I'm not gonna be able to be there until about 2 or 3 weeks. Can we hold off until then? Sure, no problem. 'Cause we just want it fixed.
Is this something we need to write as an ordinance and put it on the agenda for next meeting so we can vote on it?
Yes, if that's what y'all want.
What I think we should do is put a draft together that explains, the preliminary cost if you get the violation, and then if you go to court, then there's court costs associated with that, blah, blah, blah. And then get a consensus throughout the month prior to the next meeting so you can have an ordinance ready for us to review and vote on.
Okay. But y'all do want to go the route of doing the 250 first offense and then $500.
That's good, yeah, just
I'm okay.
put something together,
Okay.
maybe a couple options so you can get a consensus from the council.
One thing I was unclear about it the last time is it makes it a lot easier for us if it's one across the entire board instead of $100 for this and $50 for this and $250 for this.
Makes sense.
Okay. Property located at 141 Coleman Circle has been surveyed, and I've already contacted the realtor and waiting to get contact back from them. End up going with, I'm working with Colliers and John Montgomery out there. I've checked with other towns on our ordinance regarding record service. Most of the ones who responded use the county's rotation list. Some use a rotation list of their own. The primary requirement I have seen is that all record services are required to be a 24/7 service, to be on their list, and that each must agree to arrive within 20 minutes when called. One town had an A list and a B list based on preferential treatment for local businesses within 1 mile of town. Our PD is primarily concerned with having someone who they can depend on to arrive in a timely manner when called and available 24/7. If you want a new ordinance, I need direction of what you're looking for. The problem with the old ordinance, from what I've been hearing from the public and from reading the ordinance provides an A list and a B list, but it never says how to use that A list and B list. It just says use a rotation.
I would very much like that corrected to where it does give preferential treatment to businesses inside the town.
Okay.
Is that a consensus? I mean, we don't wanna do it just with one person, but we wanna have a consensus.
I think everybody pretty much
I
agrees
think
with
so.
that.
Yeah, as long as there's a backup option.
Yeah, I mean, list B is good, so maybe, like we said, just do a draft with proper verbiage that would identify exactly the responsibilities of the officer or the chief, and we can review it, have it on the agenda for next month.
Another thing on there is I'd recommend, one of the things, there's a process of having someone be put on the list. And currently the chief has to go out and do a lot of inspection on there. I'd recommend one thing to change on there is if they're already on the county list, they can automatically be put on the town list.
I think that's appropriate.
Yes.
So,
But also if they choose to call their own record service, they can.
Yes, yes.
That's prerogative anyway.
So this only occurs when if you're in an accident and you're unable to contact someone, the town calls dispatch and they contact someone on your behalf. Or when there's a vehicle that is abandoned somewhere in the town and parked where it's not supposed to, and we have it towed, that's where the rotation list comes in. Chief, did you want to say anything or any comments at all? I want to make sure that you had an opportunity.
You covered the ones that I had. Is there anything that you would like added to the ordinance that would help the department?
There's some verbs in I don't think is reasonable. For example, 20-minute response time, I don't believe is reasonable even for a business located within town.
Right.
I feel like most businesses would violate the ordinance, enough in a month's time that they would be taken off the list.
Right.
If there are gonna be requirements that if that business does not meet those requirements and is taken off the list, it needs to specifically say how they can get back on the list, because that is not in the current ordinance. So, to be quite honest, I would rather there be an entirely new ordinance as opposed to striking 3 issues we have now and replacing them however we want them to be. I think we just need to start over and do exactly how it works for our town.
So will you work with the administrator in getting that taken care of tonight? Okay.
The stormwater master plan has begun, and there'll be a presentation soon. They'll have a status report soon, and then they will also have some times where they'll ask the community, the public, to make comments. One particular one, I believe, is on Wildwood, that's off of Dogwood Circle. Those concerns that are out there, to make sure that when they have public hearing or the public meetings, to let those people know in that little corner where we've gotten complaints about, to let everyone know that that's an issue that needs to be addressed. I spoke with some of those people today at the senior center. Alley Marketing has reviewed our website and is able to work with us on various updates and changes that will need to be made. However, they recommend that we abandon the WordPress for the site and instead have it hosted with them. WordPress has some security issues based on their feedback on there, and we may want to look at doing something different. This is not something that's currently in the budget right now, and it's not something I'm asking you to put in the budget. I just want to let you know that in the future this will be something that will come before you. Bulk Waste Day on August 3rd was a big success. Had a lot of dumpsters filled up. If council just lets me know, if you want to wait until spring to do this again, you don't have to tell me now. But y'all talked about having up to 4 a year. Just let me know when you would like to have one of those again. Regarding the Nature Trail Bridge replacement, one proposal came from a contractor that Powell currently uses at a cost of $134,710. This is for a steel and concrete bridge that I would suspect will never need replacing. It also includes replacing the asphalt trail, 8 foot wide by around 1,600 feet long. The section from the bridge to Sunny Acres has been deteriorating due to flooding and roots. I also reached out to John Woodsby at Spartanburg County Parks and Recs, and they said that they could replace what was there in the past for about $10,000. They wouldn't be able to get to it until the fall. So I'm currently looking at grants to be able to go after something like that. It's a little bit different with being a county, but I think we can make it work out. We do need to make sure that we have an easement, which I don't think we currently have with Packlet Milliken. There is another option if council is interested in, and that is where potentially Spartanburg County takes over the trail. If they take over the trail and it's a Spartanburg County Parks and Recs trail, they would end up replacing the bridge with their cost within their own department. So that's an option that I wanted y'all to be aware of.
They'll maintain it as well.
They will maintain it. They will cut the grass. They will maintain it. They will. They've got more funding than we do to take care of that trail, and I think that's something that the council should strongly consider. Instead of us trying to find the $10,000 to spend it, they've got it already in their budget.
Have they shown interest in?
Yes, they have.
That's one
I'd love to have John Woodsby come and do a small presentation, because there may be other options for some stuff around town.
You could reach out to Milliken, prior to that and let us know.
Yes. We'll be updating the existing signs for the kayak launch takeout locations with the increase in activity. I just want to let you know that this was being in the works. Currently it says canoe portage. Some people may not understand what that means, and so what we're going to do is put in some new signage that says kayak takeout or kayak launch. And a picture of a kayak that's going to be on there. It'll be placed there at the intersection where the Fishing Pier Drive comes off, as well as down at the road or the path that goes down to the launch, and then we'll also put ones down on the south section as well.
Patrick?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me know where they, you speaking of here or down there? This is kayak.
So as of right now, what we have is most people are putting in at either Clifton Beach, or they're putting in at Lawson's Fork and coming down, and this is a takeout location. Can't go to the dam. And what you can do, and I think Jason Epley mentioned earlier, is you can take the kayak out, walk all the way down to the lower dam, and then drop it down there. And I think what came up in our steering committee while we were going through is it's a terrible access down there. So eventually we will be repairing or opening that up down there and putting in some type of lock space down below the dam.
So down here.
Yeah.
Down there.
Just straight up down there. Every mountain.
I
Shoes on,
haven't
boots on.
walked that, well, I've walked down that way.
I had reached out to Lockhart Power, and after several emails back and forth, they've agreed to let us put a takeout location at the bottom of the little ramp that goes down there in the parking lot by the fishing piers. As long as it is listed as a kayak takeout location, and it is not for use for fishing, and it's not for use for swimming off of. And as long as we put a sign that lets people know of that, they're okay with letting us move forward with that. So currently looking at grants to be able to cover that cost.
Now, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So they want a sign saying no fishing or swimming.
Correct.
Now, who's gonna enforce that?
It would mainly be the responsibility of the
But
DNR.
is it just taking away liability by putting it there if something happens? Well, we had a sign up there.
Right.
Swimming at your own.
We've got another sign, a green sign that's down a little further that has some rules and regulations that are on there. It may be just added with that. But yes, if someone ends up, is out there and they are swimming off of that, I'd advise PD that we, try to ask them to get off there. And if it becomes a problem, then we.
That's the same way we have it over there, the fishing pier and all too, though, it's the same problem we have there too.
I'll skip over 16 and 17 because I think you're already familiar with this. Currently looking at making some upgrades to Public Works building, which include cameras for security, upgraded electrical. There's a lot of other stuff that's on here. This is for the benefit of the employees that are down there. I've gotten a few quotes that have come in, but I'd like to have a small group that we can go and walk around and kind of look at what needs to be done down there. And then put together a plan and a budget to present the council. There's some electrical needs. If you go into the Public Works building down there during the day and turn on the lights, it takes a good a few minutes for your eyes to adjust because the lights are very, very light. Dark or whatever the word is. They're not bright at all. There's some areas that there's very little outlets that are out there for them to use. I want to try to provide a place where they can go and cool off down there. There's no current place to do for them to do that. And I mentioned before on here, I'd like to put a refrigerator in there for them to be able to store drinks. Because especially during the hot days, that a place where they can kind of cool off and get some drinks that are out there. So if anybody's interested in kind of doing a little walkthrough and kind of getting together some ideas, there's some funding that I think is left over from creating the Public Works Department from the ARPA money that evaluations, we're having a punch list meeting this, Friday to go walk through. Tony and I will be doing that. Town of Greenville got your desk deals out here, and they very much appreciated that. It was brought up before about the amphitheater. We had a contractor come out and do an evaluation of the amphitheater. Once I have that information, I'll provide that to you next month. But we are moving forward and trying to get that repaired.
They say when you'll be back.
They did not say, but I'll reach out to them tomorrow and find out. Power the Packlet will take place this Saturday at the upper parking lot by the fishing piers. Local live music will take place from 12 noon to 7 p.m. There is full day and half day trips scheduled with guides along the river. Tickets for the trips are available on the town's website through Eventbrite for those either renting equipment or bringing their own. Tickets for these trips include an event t-shirt, barbecue plate from Jolly Roger, as well as transportation for you and your kayak to the 2 launch locations along the river. You can also rent equipment at the fishing pier on an hourly basis. Spartanburg Water has agreed to release additional water from their dam at Lake Blaylock, so there's plenty of water. So Friday morning, they're going to release so that we can get what's called 300 CFS, and that's cubic feet per second. And so by the time that the event starts on Saturday morning, there'll be plenty of water and enough for flow, so people aren't having to move around rocks and sandbars and that sort of thing. The event could not be possible without the assistance of the Packlet Fire Department, Converse Fire Department, and Glendale Fire Department, who will be stationed along the river to ensure safety for all those participating in the event. There is need for lots of volunteers to make this event successful. Specifically, what I'm looking for are people to transport the kayaks from the trailers on the side of the road down to the river. We'll have a way to transport the kayaks and the people up to Lawson's Fork Creek, as well as Clifton Beach. But I need some help getting those kayaks from the trailer down into the water. The Packlet River Fest is coming up on Saturday, October 19th. We're still low on some sponsorships, but everything is coming together. Vendors are being evaluated before approving to keep multiple vendors selling the same thing.
How many sponsorships are left?
Sir?
How many sponsorships are left?
We're still about 3,000 or 4,000. I have to look back and see. I think we're about $3,000 from being where we were last year. They'll be located on the concrete instead of the grass. So, Mr. Wright, you won't have a problem setting them up this year like we did before. But we're looking at locating them at different locations, so it's a lot easier for people to walk around and look at the vendors and stuff. Mr. Wright was our vendor aficionado last year. Director, coordinator. And then we're working with the Packlet Library. We'll have a petting zoo and various activities with the Packlet Library. Any questions?
I've got 2 things for you.
Sure.
If you could do them very briefly, because we have a long meeting ahead of us. I'm very interested in hearing about the One Spartanburg Union County Development meeting, and then also if you could explain very simply in layman's terms. There's been some miscommunication put out to residents and they've, been led to believe falsely that because our budget is larger, our taxes have increased. So if you could explain why that's not true.
So the millage rate is 80.0842, so 84.2 mils. And the reason that the revenue has increased, even though the mills has not, is more people are moving into the community. The homes that are built, like Enchanted Homes that were put out there, and other developers who are coming into the community as property values increase. And then the other thing is we also have new grants, new earmarks, new other funding that's coming in that doesn't take into, that isn't part of your taxes. So there's other revenue that comes in, and the town just recently, or the whole county just recently had a reassessment of property values. That increased the revenue coming in, but it didn't change the millage rate. I believe the millage rate hasn't changed in about 10 years. together a joint industrial development park. There are a lot of extra incentives for businesses if you locate a development park on the county border. And so you pick up tax benefits from Union County and from Spartanburg County, and they end up coming together. And so we're identifying some properties, and this was maybe a little bit difficult. The park does not have to be in one location. We can have an east park and a west park. And so what we're looking at is identifying a couple properties in Union County and a couple properties in Spartanburg County. And so we're identifying a couple that are on 176 in Packlet. Another one that's being considered in Union County is Tracus Park that's out there. And so using the two different groups' resources together to encourage and bring development to happen in one of those locations, actually all those locations.
That empty one that's going down 176 or 9?
So the one that's down number 9, the Tracus Industrial Development Park, that's in Union County. And so that was one, so we're looking at having 4 properties that will be part of this industrial joint development group, and so one Spartanburg, Union County, and so we're looking at finding, the next big thing, like, Milo's Tea. I'm not sure if you knew this, but Milo's is down in Moore. They were gonna go at Tracus Park. That was their other location. And the reason they didn't go there is because they didn't like that Tracus didn't have frontage on 176. Other than that, they love the location.
You missed out on that.
Good work.
I'm going to say this, and I hope I'm not going to upset anybody on this, but one thing that came up in that meeting with Union County and Spartanburg, before we started the meeting, one of the things that was said is, be very careful. I'm going to try to tiptoe around this. Be very careful what is said on Facebook about your town and about your community and your comments that you say on there, because this came up in that meeting. When industrial companies are looking to come to your community, they are looking for reasons to take you off the list. They've got 30 locations they're looking at. They're looking in Spartanburg, they're looking in Charleston, they're looking in Packlet, they're looking in Arizona, they're looking in Iowa, they're looking in Florida. And they're looking for reasons to take you off the list. You don't have 4-lane highway, you don't have access to rail, you don't have access to sewer. One of the things they do look at is how the residents and the people in the community talk about the community. And I know that I'm not saying anything. You have freedom of speech to say whatever you want to, but I want people to understand that more than the people who live and work in this community read the stuff that's on there, and it deters business and development to coming into your community. I'll leave that alone. That's all that I have for my report.
Thank you for the report.
I'm not sure if Brian wants to do the RCI report.
Can't believe.
Okay. If you have any questions on there, I don't have the information in front of me. I just have the report. If you have any questions, let me know, and I can get that information to RCI and get any questions answered. If you don't have any questions, if the chief wants to come up and give his report.
Good evening, Council. It's great to see everybody. We've had a busy summer. The summer started out a little slower than usual, but it has really caught up to that in the last month, I'd say. 224 calls for service, 1,318 officer-initiated events. We had quite a bit of noteworthy activity this month. Arrests have been made for 2 different cases of possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine, possession of fentanyl, and 1 case of trafficking of fentanyl, which is a very serious charge. We're glad to take that on drugs off the streets. Several wanted persons have been taken into custody as well. So a very busy month, call volume wise and plenty of activities for the children. What did I say? Did I say ice? It's been a busy summer. October 2nd, we really hope to see everybody there. We had a great time last year, and we want everybody to come out and meet our police officers in a setting that isn't a police call, because we don't want you to meet our police officers for the very first time at a stressful moment. We want you to get to know them, make a friendship, make a bond, know a name, doing something that isn't related to police work, and that's what this is all about.
You have enough funding for this, like you're.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm good, thank you. Any questions I can answer from anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you. Consider second reading of the ordinance that annex into the town of Franklin, South Carolina, a property located on 1,189 Highway 176, tax map number 3.33-33-0056.14.
Motion to approve second reading to annex 1189 Highway 176.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to annex that property. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? All opposed? Consider to update, the work, at town hall with handicap ramp. You got that, Patrick?
So, at the last council meeting, there was a possibility, or the consideration putting in the lift. The cost on that lift, I believe was about $11,000 on there. And you wanted to have additional, options. So option A is that lift. Option B is to have a ramp, a permanent ramp that goes out to the wall, turns, and then comes back. They've got the preliminary cost on there at about $16,500 for that wood ramp and rails. And then we had talked about, because I remember this was an option at one point, so we went back to it, is the possibility of a temporary ramp. So this is the idea that we end up putting in a step beside Councilperson Walford at the very end down there, and you can walk off, use the step, and head out just like you would head out here. If at any point in time, any of y'all required ADA access, or the judge, who was, once we moved court here, required ADA access, we would have a temporary metal ramp that's down in the basement. It will be brought up here, it would be put in place, and it would be used at that time. This gives you the option of not doing anything except for putting a step there. Which I think aesthetically ends up looking good. However, if you do end up having someone who requires the ADA accessibility, a metal ramp is not pretty. But I would imagine it would just be temporary. We would set it up, as if it takes about 30 minutes to set up. We could call Public Works to come out here and set it up in place for that meeting, and then once it's done, take it down and put it down in the basement.
Cost on it now?
What's the cost on the temporary ramp?
There are two different costs on there. It's $4,000 or $2,000 depending on the style. To me, I just recommend the cheaper one that's on there, $2,000. Plus, it'll be a 10% for their, I guess their fees, the additional $350 for Lyles PE to build. But considering the other option we were looking at was, I believe it was over $10,000 on there.
Yeah, this was the original plan, so if it's an option and our building inspector says it's gonna work, then I love it.
Yes, this is an option that the building inspector originally said that we could use, and we had some back and forth with us and Lyles, and yes, this is an option for you. Put a step, and if you needed it, you call us up, call up Town Hall about an hour before the meeting if that was that close. And we would put the ramp in place.
Roll the screen.
Oh, roll the screen.
I think aesthetically and functionality, I think the temporary one is the way to go.
Yeah.
It's not,
I don't foresee it being here all the time.
yeah, would be seen all the time, it'd be used when only you had to use it.
I mean, I don't think there was a need, I'm sorry.
Savings that we thought we would have to spend.
I think we're good with going with the step and the temporary.
Believe everybody.
Y'all good with
I
that?
think everybody,
We need to vote on it.
you don't vote on it, or just temporary?
You just want to say that you would go with option 3 of the $2,000 ramp
Yeah.
plus fees that are on there.
Okay.
You already have the budget for this, so you don't need an approval, you just need some guidance, correct?
Yeah.
I just need to know that if we go in this direction, that y'all don't fire me for going in this direction. But to me, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too.
So you're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, our auditor or inspector is good with this, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, C is considered a second reading of amendment, to, year 2025 town, faculty annual budget.
You go to approve a second reading amendment to 2025 budget.
Need a second? Need a second?
I'll say.
Motion made and second to approve the second reading of amendment, to the town faculty budget, 2025 budget. Any questions?
Can we just go over what those amendments are?
Sure. So it's changing the grants, to the, let's see if I've got it here. The first are changes of work at Packlet Town Hall. The town received $250,000 from the state to make updates to Town Hall. With updates approved at the last council meeting, there was one additional item, the handicap lift, which is required by code. Now, that ends up changing.
Right, so that's gonna be a lot less than.
It's gonna end up, you're gonna end up budgeting for it, but not spending it.
Is that, where's that at for the contingency?
So the handicap lift, let's first off look at the expenses, and it's gonna be under the, building maintenance. It's at $262,980.
Wait a minute, building.
It's on the second page of the budget.
So that's gonna be less, what, the 12?
I don't have that number, but it was, we were budgeting, I think, for about $12,000 increase there for the ramp, and now we're looking at somewhere around $3,000. It's $2,000 plus additional costs from them. It's just under $3,000 is what it'll end up being.
So we still need to leave it at the 262?
You just leave it where it is, would be fine. We're just not gonna spend that much.
You can adjust it for what the ramp approval,
Yeah.
before, we can approve it with the adjustments spoken about tonight, correct?
The only thing is, I don't know what that number is right now, and if I adjust it there and take it down, then I've gotta adjust revenue as well.
Okay.
So we're just leaving it there?
You just leave it there, but you'll notice that we're gonna come in under budget on that.
We'll end up with a surplus at the end of the fiscal year.
Right, but should we need that money somewhere else?
So the $250,000 of that came from an earmark from the state. The other amount was gonna end up coming out of just, general fund, and so it won't come out of general fund now.
But there'll still be $9,000 in there for other maintenance items if necessary.
Yes, yes.
Do we have a motion to approve it?
time, we're trying to increase it up to $35,000. I still want us to work on trying to get it to that number on there. The last item on there is to receive a grant in the amount of $15,000 from Norfolk Southern, which is why the grant increase on there. The hospitality funds is to cover the cost of the sign, and then the contingency is just additional funds that are carryover funds from this year to next year.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Consider second reading of amendment, to the zoning ordinance, chapter 3, section 4, permitted use of table retail.
Motion to approve on second reading. Amendment to zoning ordinance, chapter 3, section 4.
Can we go over those as well?
Yeah, so on your screen on there, there's a color copy in your packet, it's just black and white. There's two things on there. As of right now, if you are wanting to put a retail business in the neighborhood edge location, you can put in a business currently that's 15,000 square feet and bigger, but nothing less.
Which is crazy.
It's a typo in your zoning ordinance, but since it was approved like this, we have to pass it by ordinance to fix it.
Okay. Need a second?
I second.
Motion made and second. Any other questions, any more comments? All in favor? All opposed? Consider the second reading to adopt, 2024 Town of Packard Comprehensive Plan.
Motion to approve on second reading, adoption of the 2024 town Packard comp plan.
Need a second?
I second.
Motion made and second to adopt the, 2024 Town of Packard, Comprehensive Plan. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, consider second reading to approve municipal service agreement with Duke Power, Energy Carolina LLC.
I want to make a comment on this. I voted in favor of the first reading on this, but after looking over the town's finances and basically how well the town's managed its finances and how healthy we are financially, this would basically create a approximately 20,000 per year increase on electric bills, and I think we can find that in the budget. I would not vote in favor of the second reading on this. I think we should keep it the same. We could boast that we are far below anyone else in the state in our electric bills. I would like to make a motion on first reading to approve a service agreement that keeps it at 3%.
I'm glad you said that, because I was having second thoughts as well.
Yeah, it is a tax, and I don't like taxes, and it's a small amount, but it could still be considered a tax.
So what it is right now is with the town currently is at 3%. Every 10 years they come out and they give you the opportunity to increase the franchise fee for utilities. When I talked to Duke Energy and talked to several other people in the county, they verified that the town of Packard is in a handful of communities across the state that is currently at 3%. Most of them are at 5%. A percentage is $1 per. No, I think it's $1 per $100, and I believe that ends up being. I'm almost positive that's based on per year, not per month. There. Originally, I was thinking it was $1 per month. is since y'all already voted one time to approve this, if you stop now and don't approve it on the second reading, we have to start over with another first reading for it to be changed.
We have a current service agreement that says 3%, correct?
We have a current service agreement that ends. The reason that they sent this to us is that we need it to be renewed. It can stay at 3%, but the contract has to be renewed. It has to be rewritten.
When does it end?
When I asked that question to them, they said they want this to be approved by October 1st.
So we can do a first reading now, we just have to do a second. We would, because it's on the agenda, we can't actually.
We can not vote in favor of this, amend the agenda to include a service agreement that says 3%. Have the first reading of it tonight. And then
Yeah,
next
we'll
month,
vote this
we
one
have the
down
second.
first.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda. Or actually, we have to.
You have to let this
Now, vote
die.
this one down first.
We let it die or we vote against?
You can vote against it, that's fine. But what it would take right now is a motion to approve. Was there a motion and a second?
No, there
But,
was, I made a
not
motion.
for the second reading, there was during the first reading,
Okay, but at this point,
change it.
This one, we need to,
you can just let it die and we can go on record and Tony can put on record that it died.
I second the motion to amend the agenda.
okay, motion made and seconded, the agenda, amend the agenda.
Amend the agenda to include the service agreement, new service agreement.
A first reading of a service agreement to retain or keep the franchise fee for Duke Energy at 3% for the next 10 years.
Correct.
And we have 120 days to change that, I believe, right?
Yes. If you change it, it gives 120 days before it takes effect.
Right. So
We reached out to Lockhart Power, theirs is a lot simpler. So you made the motion, second. All in favor?
Made and seconded. All in favor? Okay, we amended the, okay, we need, motion second to, first reading of that 3%.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of the 3% agreement.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor? Okay. All right. Consider a new business, consider awarding contract, design back station park to the lowest possible responsible bidder.
So we had two prices that came in. One was $12,700 from Seaman Whiteside, and then another one that came in approximately $30,000 from GMC. Councilman Williams, Palmer Green, and Brackens were on that committee that reviewed it. Do you make any comments or recommendations from your committee?
Yes, we agreed on the lowest rate.
I motion to, approve SW Plus, is that what they call themselves? On the
They're
design.
the lowest.
They are the lowest, yeah.
Where's it, do we have it?
Do we have those bids in front of us?
The bids, I had emailed the bids for y'all to look at, and then just so your packet wasn't 3,000 pages long.
He had the bids.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, they're
You
easy.
start there and then go sit down.
If we go by lowest number, we could just have them listed.
SW
What's that?
Plus was the lowest bidder.
How much, what are the prices again, I'm sorry?
The price for SW was $12,700. The price for GMC was $30,000. The council budgeted $15,000 and received a check for $15,000 from Norfolk Southern to cover the cost of this. So unless the council wants to allocate additional dollars, which I do not recommend that you do that, I recommend that based on the committee's recommendation, it's $12,700 that you'll move forward with SW.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve.
you already made a motion over here.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. You want a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Approve SW.
they're looking to be annexed into the town to have access, to sanitation and trash pickup.
And police service.
And police service, they specifically asked, that they wanted to have,
So
yes.
that you say it's the road that turns off of 150?
It's the one that connects 150 up to, Cowpens, Packlet Highway, I believe.
Yeah, down below Brown's Chapel.
Yes.
Oh, I go on up the street and pass
Yeah,
Brown.
that's right.
Past Brown's Chapel
Yeah.
sign, past the Packard sign and into the left.
Yeah. Motion to move to approve.
Second.
Second motion made and second to approve it. Any other questions? All in favor? All opposed? Discussion, with the Department of Water, sewer to expand in Packard.
So Kevin Smith is here, I'm gonna ask him to come up, unless he's already left.
No, he's
Everybody
here.
else has.
He's here.
And what he's gonna be talking about is, we had looked at, moving out and expanding sewer out on, West Main Street for, the buildings that are on West Main Street, as well as the, vacant lots that's owned by Norfolk Southern. And I had them actually look at some of the options that are out there. I'll let him kind of talk about some of the things that came up out there, and I'll pull it up in the screen.
So, Patrick reached out to us probably about this time last year about how to get sewer to near the intersection of West Main and Highway 150 there. So at that time, I think we met with him, kind of talked him through what an extension, what that process looks like, and encouraged him to get with a consulting engineer to kind of look at the different options of extending sewer to that site. And I think, Patrick, you got with Summit Engineering, and they came up with a cost estimate for a route that was in the order of almost $200,000. And then I think, don't let me say too much, Patrick, but the property owner had also reached out to another engineer to look at an alternate route to try to get it a little cheaper, and we're certainly open to that route if that's the way that the town wants to go. I was kind of intrigued by the plan that was presented earlier that Patrick had already shared with me about the Norfolk Southern property, and if this would really be up to your engineer, Patrick, to decide if that's the best option. But looking at extending sewer along that back parking lot all the way down to that property on the corner may be the best of the three routes, but I'll leave that up to your consultant to decide.
We had looked at, so if you look on the master plan, there was a conversation about putting some infill buildings down through West Main Street. And previously, the way we had looked was to come out and then turn north and head up to Memorial. That design was put together before council looked at the master plan and had other buildings out there. So if it ends up going further out, a couple of things end up happening on there. If the town's able to acquire the property from Norfolk Southern, then that's their property. They're not gonna have to have easements to be able to work through that there. It makes it a lot easier for putting a line in that direction.
I have maps of our existing sewer system if anybody's interested.
Yes, please. I'm more
I
visual.
don't think I have enough for everyone.
If y'all remember back in, I believe it was August or September of 22, some of y'all were on the council at that time, and council wanted to consider expanding sewer system in the town. And I think once we looked at what was currently available out there already, and the fact that the current treatment plant, I believe, is at only 25% capacity, and it should be much higher than that we need to try to get more people connected to the existing system before we start expanding to additional areas. I believe it was when Gene was here discussing that.
So how would it run now?
So I think the option that Summit had came up
So with RIA grants, the owner of the sewer has to be the one who's submitting the grant that's on there. What we're currently doing is also reaching out to the COG and to see if there are other grants that are out there that this Spartanburg Water may not be applying for, that we could potentially go after. We're also talking and trying to figure out if we could combine this with another project that they're currently already doing that's out there. One option that I looked at that we were trying to figure out was if the town of Packlet puts the money that we were going to put up, which is about $98,000 towards us, what could we do if we just gave that money directly to Spartanburg Water? Is there something they can do in-house? Because they do have equipment to be able to do some of this sort of thing. One of the comments that came back that Guy had mentioned was they went out and evaluated, and as you all know that you've got these two large quarries that are in town. Because of those quarries, or not because of the quarries, the reason the quarries are here is for that bedrock. And the concern that came up was that he actually said the Summit Engineering quote actually may be too low because it doesn't account blasting once you get into the bedrock that's down there. And I believe he mentioned he was trying to get down to about 15 feet below surface to be able to connect onto the Memorial Drive area. And one option we had talked about was the possibility, could we go ahead, could the town maybe offset some cost in terms of doing some core samples or some ground penetrating radar? Because if there's not bedrock down there at the levels that we think that might be down there, there may be a cheaper way to be able to do this project. And there may be a possibility that we could partner with Spartan Water with their equipment, their expertise, their engineers, and then we just support the project by putting $100,000 into it. We were trying to look at different options.